I'll continue playing, inshallah. There's plenty to get through, inshallah.
Modern Muslim nation state, a modern Muslim country that suppose a political party, because theoretically, I don't want to mention specific countries' names. Suppose a Muslim majority country, an Islamist party comes to power, right? And now they have taken over, alhamdulillah, a massive group of Muslims, the majority of whom are not religious people 5 times a day praying. The majority of whom are involved in sins like drinking and whatnot. And now this party has come to power. And they decide to fine-tune and not apply the Sharia instantaneously. Because according to their view, I mean, again, let's look at Egypt when the spring happened, first thing happened. As you know, the quick modifications that the Islamist party had to do, like, is there going to be Jizya? Well, okay, I guess not, there's not going to be Jizya. Okay, how about the non-Muslim, power? Oh, they can have power except for the president. What do you mean he can't be there? So as you know, the whole conversation took place. Is that kufr? The gradualism that these parties adopted. Can they make a temporary change?
Stop here. He mentioned 2 issues: the jizya and apply tune, fine tune Islam. First of all, he seems to be that the jizya is just a tax, and we have cases where people were having a different jizya, and people who have even relieved from jizya. People like the tribe of Taghlib in time of Omar say, we don't we jizya, we feel it's demoralizing, it makes us feel low. We want to pay zakah. Omar said, take from zakah. For us, it's the same. It's a jizya. It's a tax. If they want to pay like zakah, it's even worse for them because the jizya is lower than the zakah. It's only 1 dinar per head for earning man, excluding woman and excluding. Zakah is applied to everyone. Okay, take from you the tax as a zakah. You call it zakah, it's also jizya. It's the same. It's not a zakah. It will go in the jizya because it's from a non-Muslim. So you can't even apply the usual taxation. So we give him a choice. You want zakah? That's our doing. With the presence of the Sahaba, nobody objected. So the jizya is just for protection, being a citizen, and the state is obliged to support you and to fight for you. That's it. It's a tax. The people make a big, especially jihadi, make a big jizya. They don't pay jizya, and these criminal idiots from ISIS try to enforce jizya on the people of, say the people did not pay their jizya, the Christian and the Yazidi in Iraq and so on. They did not pay their jizya for a long time, and the Dhima is broken. No, nobody asked them for jizya. The secular government of Iraq did not ask, and it may be the last days of the Uthmani did not ask from them. So they are willing to pay their taxes. So how come that the Dhima is broken? But these are mentally deranged anyway. They are not really someone you can refer to ISIS, etc. These are mentally deranged and utterly deviant and misguided people. But so that's it. That's because what do you mean the other thing that apply Islam gradually? For example, many people drink and so on. Yeah, well, let them drink. What's the issue? If someone is apprehended publicly, not in house, because you cannot go in the house and apprehend the people because they are drinking. That's what they do in Saudi Arabia with this, these organizations they call commanding good and forbidding. Actually, they're commanding evil and forbidding good. These organizations in Saudi Arabia, and they have really expelled many people out of Islam with their misbehavior and abuse of commanding good and forbidding evil. If he comes in the street drunk and he's apprehended, 2 witnesses are there, just will administer the 40 lashes. What's the problem with that? It can be done immediately. It seems to be has in his mind that you go check everyone in his house and see you have khamr or so. You don't have the right to do that in the first place. What if he's apprehended drinking khamr or drunk on the street? And witnesses are there and get him to the authority. Even they are obliged to take him home or get him sober somewhere. Get him home and tell his wife or family, keep him under lock. This guy is causing problem for himself. That's it. It's again a misunderstanding of Islam. There's no problem with that. Other thing, for example, say, what's about usury banking? It's very simple. The moment you are in power, no usury contract will be the existing usury contract has to be wind down. How to wind down is a technicality, is an issue of accounting. What to do with them? From the moment you declare no more usury contract, new contracts can be made, and the old existing contracts are usury calculation, which is maybe compounding, stop compounding, and the previous one you have to sort out how to do the accounts and get like the Quran say, فَلَكُمْ رُؤُوسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ. You have your capital. لَا تظلمون ولا تظلمون. This will be done by accounting. No new contracts. That's it. So the banks will collapse. To the hell with the banks. Let them collapse. If they are even from usury, they will have to transform themselves as quick as possible into Islamic banks and into essentially commercial banks and investment banks. No more giving interest on deposit or charging interest for straight loans. especially for credit cards. That's their mainstay of the banks now, especially after the financial crisis 2008 in the West. Sucking the blood of the consumer is from credit card, by the way. And credit cards usually is massive, 30%, 25%. The very prime cards were given for people with high credit rating are 20 something. But if you have low rating, the companies will give you a credit card with 40%, 50% if your credit low. And they suck your blood. It's all consumer and also taking your, why? Because they can create money out of nothing and then you just number there. And that's it, creating money out of nothing. Because the usury system. That's the catastrophic aspect of the usury system. In addition, sucking the consumer and the weak people blood. Because for the big ones, usually they charge lower loans and the well-established one, and these ones are having business and so on, they can pay that and more. There really no injustice done to them. There's nothing is allowed. It still has. Nobody will be allowed to have a usury contract. It can be done in one day. And the winding up takes some time. We never said you have to wind it up at the same day. The bank has to review the accounts, close it down in stages according to availability of money, and so that's okay. But there's no new contract and no continuation of the existing contract usury, but winding them down in a reasonable way. That's it. The Messenger of Allah winded the final usury in Hajjat al-Wada before he died few months, alayhi salatu wasalam. He stood there. All the riba of Jahiliyyah is finished now. It's cancelled. So it was still some people who were still settling out old accounts. It's now cancelled. And the first riba I am cancelling now immediately. So how many years? And the order against the riba is many years before. The riba of my uncle Abbas, because he was a big murabi, he was a big banker. Who and Abu Sufyan were the bankers of Arabia. So that's the way it's settled. Did Abbas did any usury contract after he became Muslim? No. But that's riba of Jahiliyyah, all the old contracts which were made before Islam, before he embraced Islam, and even before the coming of Islam, there's some contracts going for 20, 30 years in time past. And they were still winding them. And then in after so many years in Hajjaj al-Wa'sa, now it is khalas. Now, no more. Close it. Finish. Over. So the winding down may take some time. There's nothing that became permissible. Or you have to change the law. These people do not know what they're talking about. They haven't imagined, or they think the Islamic State and the Sharia, they think it's in the wrong way. No wonder if they follow Sharia the way of Muawiyah and co-applied and the Umayyads, no wonder. No wonder that that's the catastrophe of Islamic history. For example, what they call it, the conquest of Sind and China. Hajaj sent armies, they say that's one of his virtues. No. The army he sent with his cousin Muhammad ibn Qasim al-Thaqafi to conquer Sind. That's the Sind area near Karachi and so on. That they call the Sind area. The reason is that some people who fought against him and lost in the Battle of Jamajim, some scholars escaped there and have asylum. And he told the ruler there, who was at peace with Muslims, with everything, told him, deliver them to me. He said, no, they have asylum here. And Al-Hajjaj committed a crime of attacking the place. It's a criminal attack. It's an Bani Umayyah crime. It's not an Islamic conquest. It's not Islam whatsoever. And the same with China. China was at peace, had good relation with Muslims. But the Chinese emperor was very intelligent. They say, what do you want? For Qutayba bin Sa'id al-Bahili, Qutayba bin Sa'id, what do you want? Say, I must get this area under Islam. I must step in China. Say, no problem. We'll send you a bunch of Chinese soil and you step with your foot in it. Then you are happy. Return him back. Most of these people are mentally deranged. Just play with them game. Not like the Sahaba he knows and Muhammad with whom he had a communication time past. Or his predecessors had communication time past. So that's it. And in all that, Fath al-Hind, Fath al-Sind, and all scholars say Fath. There's no Fath. It's a criminal war. It's one of the worst conquests. We have to go back. We have to review the history and clean it up, clean the mess, the contamination which are contaminated fiqh, because all fiqh school emerged in the 2nd century. So look in the past, Fath al-Sind. So that actually, Hajaj is a criminal, but he has done some Fath. No, he didn't any Fath. Because they don't scrutinize what history means. And this man is not a legitimate ruler. And Abdul Malik was not a legitimate ruler. Maybe they were even ruling by kufr. they ignored all of that and took example for their deeds as possibly reasonable application of the law of war in Islam. It's not. It's a violation of Islam of most disgusting type. So I don't understand what I mean with gradual. What's gradual?
Well, the other thing to bear in mind.
Well, for example, you take power in a place and then and you are really the dominant force. Yeah. Let's say you take full power, even have a constitution. Doesn't mean that you face brothers one by one after time. No, all brothers will be closed, and the prostitutes will be re-educated and change their name and cover their honor so they become honorable member of society.
The other thing is also to bear in mind is often on the one side people fixate on taking power, on the other side people become too wish-washy. So there isn't the understanding that there isn't a rush to take power. The work has to happen before you take power on the people.
But even there will be a minority, and they have to accommodate them as long as they're not rebel against the public order. Even if they are kafir, they are accommodated for. But in the public order, as I said, public order in the Islamic domain, not in the Dhima domain. You may have a domain of confederation where only usury is prohibited according to the Najran Treaty. We have to add that to obviously to Sahifat al-Madina, so on down the road, but nothing else. They may have their own brothers. That's their domain. It's not Islamic. It's just a confederate part of the domain. It's a peace domain for Islam. It's ahad. It's a contractual domain, not an Islamic domain. I'm not going to interfere. That's for them to choose. It's not about it. But in the Islamic domain, brothers will be closed. Punishment, no punishment. It was before allowed for somehow or done with the condolence of the state is irrelevant. And then give these ladies education, treat them medically, treat them psychologically, re-educate them, give them one position, even transfer them to another place so nobody can recognize them because it's scandalous. Even in the most decadent societies, someone who was working as a sex worker will be looked at down. So the best thing is to give her a new name, educate her, and get her in another place. And try to get them settled and married. After curing from diseases, if have diseases. That's the way to go. It's simple, straight. What's the problem there? I don't see any problem. These people do not know what Islamic life, what it means. Islamic state, what does it mean? And Muhammad sallam, what does it mean? It's a mercy for mankind.
Okay, I'm going to carry on playing, inshallah, because he does cover some.
There's even an interesting hadith. Interesting hadith. I'm still verifying it and so on. Seems to be it's okay. It's one isnad, so you cannot base on it. That the Messenger of Allah having had one day a stick and hit someone with it. Just gentle. You know how he is, very gentle. And then. Hadith said allegedly that Jibreel came down. They say, Muhammad, Allah tell you, I didn't send you a tyrant. Only tyrant use a stick and beat the people. Say, oh, just disciplining him a little bit. Say, no, this is tyranny. Tomorrow you call him and ask him for forgiveness. And the Prophet did. These people are living in another world. What they invoke is Omar has this called a durra. He's invented the durra. This is like a flat, like a ruler, long ruler. Yeah, you know, it's flat. So if you hit with it, it's barely. It's almost like teasing. It's barely painful. Not with the sharp edge, with the flat. Just if it's wide, it's very wide and thin. It barely hurts. And they regard as a good invention by Omar. No, it's a bad invention. Abu Bakr did not do it. The Messenger did not do it. That Omar, because he's a rough nature, invented and thought is permissible to him, is a mistake by him. Okay. So follow him in his mistakes. Follow him where he has no mistakes in shura and insisting with shura in a strict way and staunch way and robust way. They don't follow, but follow in his mistakes. This is all diseases way of the driving laws and taking precedences, which are not precedents. And even if they are a precedence in matter of a possible ijtihad and a possible advice, they take the poor and weak one and take the fundamentally one. And Umar said, if someone, like for me, ask some Sahaba, what do you think I'm managing the money? Say, you're managing it well. Say, if I start taking liberty and take some of the treasury, they say, no. You will never do that. We know that. So assume it happens. I say, no, you will never do that. We know that you will never do this. I say, assume it happens. What will you do? You say, then we will sort you out with our sword. We will cut you into right. We'll نخذلك with our sword. Like if you take a knife and take a stick and clean it, we will correct you with our sword. Say, you are the people. You are the people I like. That's the way it should be. And in another occasion, he asked, if the Khalif after me does take liberty or does this and this and violate Shura, what are you going to do? So we'll stand up and remove him from power. I said, I don't like this answer. Say, what do you want us to do? Say, I would like to that you put him and get with the sword and cut his neck. Say, but this is not something which is this is a major crime. And cutting his neck will be a good lesson for the one coming after him. In that, Omar is not, no, that's wrongly said by Omar. But using the Durra and making mistakes in certain issues, that's the Omar then becomes just an authority. And
as long as is that clearly attributed to Umar? That narration there, is it clearly attributed to Umar bin Khattab?
Which one?
The one about striking the neck.
Yeah, all of them, and they're in a book about accounting rulers.
Yeah, to be translated, inshallah.
Don't mistake.
Okay, excellent. I mean, because
that's where the problem comes. No, the problem is gradual, not gradual, what to do, and so on. There's misunderstanding of Islam. There's a catastrophic misunderstanding of Islam.
The other thing is basically because when you see modern society, you see the level of decadence. There's the immediate assumption that how are we going to address this? Because the other thing that's probably been neglected
it will be addressed.
It
will be addressed automatically if you get the majority, which is a constitutional change. Because usually you will get an election, a system like Erdogan never got a constitutional change majority. But if you get a constitution, you can't say that because the constitution enshrines clear kufr in Turkey. If you get that, then you are obliged to change that immediately. And you tell the people the honest way, and the way should be, tell the people, these kufr things in the constitution, I am change. I want from you the mandate with sufficient majority, which is 60 or 66%. If you get that, then you're obliged to do it. And you can do it the next day, immediately. And start applying it and sorting things to accommodate the past as it can be done administratively. But the principle should be clear from day one.
But Sheikh, this is the thing though. Because people had this experience of like Iran and Saudi where it's imposed. Ultimately, as long as the dawah happens.
These FS filthy tyrannies, they allow usury banking. They have spying organizations spying on Muslim inside the domain, not against Kafir or other entities, and they fought under the banner of the American against other Muslims. They're Kafir systems that they claim we are applying social Islam and so on, playing with people feeling and simple-minded because they know that people think about Islam through the mutilated and the contaminated fiqh. You have to
they fixate on rituals. Because the reason what I'm trying to say here is that look, if for example you take Turkey and you say you had 60% secularists, then it's simple. You don't take power because the minute you say this is going to be my mandate, they say sorry, we'd rather not. Exactly. We want to stay like this. So the point is that if people already give you a popular mandate because they're already on board, you already campaign, we will be applying Islam, and this is what Islam is, then it wouldn't be that problem. They already have been briefed. If they don't say, no, thank you, we'd rather be murtad or whatever, then fine, they're going to be murtad, and you're just going to have to work on the people until they stop becoming murtad.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's the thing that
from the beginning you must know what you want, and if you go in a campaign, you should be tell the people what you expect, what you are planning for. Not it's adalat and so on, just wishy-washy statements. That's not establishing an Islamic state. And frankly speaking, I think the people in Turkey, they don't have that in their mind. I doubt strongly. I doubt that they have that strongly in their mind to establish it. They have no concept of the Islamic state. Erdogan is at best think that the Uthmani Khilafah is a good model. Uthmani Khilafah is a tyrannical state. We used to punish the people with iron rods inserted in the anus. This is clear kufr, making that as a punishment legally in the domain. We don't want to go in this miserable history, but we have to go now to clarify. That's the ideal in Erdogan mind. He's an authoritarian, wishy-washy. Maybe he's a Muslim as a single person, but his understanding of Islam is under zero. It should not be taken as a model, but the right way is like that. If we start for election, we're going to change the system is like this and this, including hudud, but hudud are not the most important. Hudud is just the final solution of certain scattered person is irrelevant. What relevant is the banking system, the currency system, the weight and measure systems. That's a fundamental thing. So fundamental, the banking system and user is so fundamental that a member of the confederation, like in the Najran Treaty, which is a supplement and extend the Sahifat al-Madina for the confederate, for the Jewish state. At the time, it was not in Iran, but for Najran, it is the only condition they related to Islam in their domain is that they don't take and deal with usury. Whoever does is regarded as breaking the covenant and will be liable of execution. That's the Najran Treaty. But otherwise, all other things exactly like the Medina, with a little bit more detail, that they have the right to have their own army, but they will not be forced to fight with Muslims. If you wish to fight, they can, etc. And the Muslims have no right to go there and dwell longer than 20 days, etc. All of these are more details because we have now more advanced state and well established. And they have obviously the fundamental things to renounce any allegiance or cooperation with the Roman Empire because they were allies of the Roman. That's why Messenger invited them to Islam and to allegiance to Islam. If they don't accept them, then become ally. And they came to discuss about Islam, and they came to the Mubahala, and they stepped back, and then accepted alliance with Islam. But that was the condition. And they spelled more in details than in Sahifat al-Madina for what they call confederate. Allied confederate alliance or something like that. Similar to the Jews, but with more details. The only details which relate to Islam is usury. Usury meaning implicit monetary system and ways and measure, because that's all a part of the system. So the ways, measure, and must be the same. At the time, ways and measure was no issue because ways and measure were established. Even some people say Islamic dinar. Some people like what was the name? Murabitun, Islamic dinar. These people admitted there is no called Islamic dinar. The dinar used, the Sharia dinar used by Muhammad at the time, is the Roman Byzantine dinar of 4.71 gram. That's it. And it was having this picture and have a cross on it, and they were using it with all that. No problem, because it's a physical entity, is well equivalent, and at the time, the empire was doing it honestly with gold, etc., as it should be. It was not falsified. And that's it. And the ways and measures are well known, well established. And based on that, you can define currency exchange, sarf, and so on, according to Hadith. Gold for gold, silver for silver, wheat for hand by hand, etc. Hadith. That's all that's regulated. And the other usury and no riba nasiya and so on. Based on that, you can have establish a clear currency, freedom system, currency system, monetary system, and a free monetary system. Completely free. No currency controls, no BS, straightforward, clear, which will make the currency really a real currency representing value, not to be shaded by a central bank, is not allowed. And usury is that what destroys the currency. Because the moment you allow usury, there will be fractional reserve banking. That fractional reserve banking will encourage the banks because they can lend with usury. Now they can lend more than what they have there in their accounts, maybe 10 times, sometimes 20 times. So they lend money they create out of nothing, and it's known. M2, Omar, what the bank has created, it's created ex nihilo. Why should the bank create money? Why should they bother? Because they charge interest. If they cannot charge interest, they will not create money. Money will be something real money with real wealth. That's usury. That's the main reason of usury. Besides protecting the weak people, like we know now that the banks are living as predator on the consumer spending, not on investment. Investment is not a problem because those who do investment and borrow, usually they are strong enough and they earn more than that. Actually, the investor in the West, they love the usury system because they say you make more money. OPM, using other people money. OPM, using OPM, other people money. OPM. It's not for the investor. Investor will be happy to give you to borrow money for a fixed interest. because the otherwise is the participation is troublesome for them. They have to share the gain. They have to keep proper accounts. Okay, all what they need to keep is just a bit of account and pay the interest in time. That's it. That's good for them. But for consumer are being killed. Their blood will be sucked dry. So you have to introduce the system day one and wind the old contracts bit by bit as it practical and it's reasonable. So what's tadarruj there? I don't know. Someone explain me what they mean with tadarruj.
Yeah, I think it's
I think a clear example is tadarruj in brothels, which were maybe publicly available. Almost nowhere in the world except few places where brothels are allowed. Let's assume you have brothels. What meaning tadarruj? Is meaning that you say, okay, now no one will give it a prostitution license unless he's 35 and above. Young girls are excluded. So we do tadarruj. You start 30, 35 above, and then 40 and so on until no one can take a license. Slowly, is that? It's disgusting. It doesn't make any sense. No, stop everything. They will be closed, but treat them gently, re-educate them, clean them, even get them in another city. So they cover them and then even get them married. That's the way to do it.
I'll continue, John.
Let me give an example, current example. It is doable. When Taliban took over, many of the Afghan youth, they're very estimated percentage. Some people say half, 50%, maybe it's exaggerated, were drug addicts because the Americans were doing drugs there, and Afghanistan is known to growing hashish and growing opium and so on. So they were addicts. What did Taliban do? In 1 year, all eliminated. Nobody was beating up. Nobody was killed. They were taken into what do you call it? And drug
rehab
and so on. And almost the drug problem is completely disappeared in 1 year. By gentle, these backward, by the way, Taliban are backward, and the study of Islam is very limited and narrow, and still they did that. It's easy. They know tadarruj there. From day one, no more drugs. And the existing problem, solve it in a way which is proper and gentle and kind. And that's what's been done, and it's done. It succeeds. Simple. That's it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's it. What the people can say, for example, that no woman can go to work except with a combined that, that's because of the madhab mistake, because the adoption mistake. And because misunderstanding of the hadith about traveling alone or traveling, all these things. But it needs to some work. You have to go to the source and see where the misunderstanding happened. What happened historically, how authentic are the hadith, and so on. Combine all the hadith and come to the conclusion. I'm not going to discuss the specific point now, but that is, you cannot blame them because that's what they inherited from the dark age mentality. The fiqh they have, the Hanafi fiqh, is really the what accumulated over, especially in the darkest time of Islamic history, like 7th, 8th century, when fiqh has frozen down. I usually tell the following joke. One Hanafi scholar was discussing, say, women need to be covered because they are ashamed. That's the reason in Urdu they call woman, they took the word awra, which means shame, or genitals. A woman is awrat. That's the Urdu word for woman. Awrat. It was a shock. Awrat means woman. Took the fabricated hadith and made it awrat. Okay. I say, so awrat must be covered. And the best what cover it is either the grave or a husband. So when the students say, Sheikh, what is the best cover? Which one of the two is the best? Say the grave. Meaning just bury them alive, go to the world of Jahiliyyah. That's a Hanafi 7 centuries ago. And that's the fiqh there Taliban is applying. And still they succeeded in the issue of drugs. Yes, they made the issue with the traveling and so on because that's their filthy adoption and they are not qualified to develop anything. And Muslim scholars like Yasir Qadhi discussing tadarruj, discuss that damn point and study it. Imagine what's tadarruj? I mentioned the case of the brothers. I mentioned what's tadarruj of what? Khamr, the same. If there are khamr factories owned by Muslim, they will be closed. By kafir, they can sell it to kafir or whatever, or export it outside. That's their ownership. They are allowed to. They have Dhima, they are a citizen. So what's it? And
in their defense, what you're finding is maybe they have got to the wrong conclusion. These two sheikhs, they get a lot of flack from the other side that they think that they're modernists and all this, that, so forth. Both camps are basically they're shooting blanks. Ultimately, it's like this. You have to go back
because
it's
because no clarification of these issues and giving an example and discussing it. So the so-called modernists says, see what Saudi Arabia is doing, so is that, and giving it as an example of Islam, or Iran even an example of Islam. Possibly sometimes Taliban, but they seized of Taliban because Taliban has made in many areas progress, which is stunning. First of all, it's kicking the American butt and checking the Islamic domain. Secondly, getting the problem. Now they have now started manufacturing electric cars. Yes, it's been given by the Chinese, but it's manufactured locally, and they're advancing in many areas. Yes, they have this bad ijtihad about women traveling alone and things like that. That can be sorted. And they're still in the backward mentality, Ahlul Aqd wal Aqd, but this is Mawardi. This is your Mashayikh and yourself. You are unable to give us any well-developed constitutional draft suitable for the 21st century. For that, you have to take Mawardi and Abu A'la al-Farra and dump it in the rubbish. Or somewhere, so because the rubbish, because it has ayahs and had the name of Allah, it should not be dumped in the rubbish. But I mean metaphorically, just get rid of it. Go back to Sahifat al-Madinah, go back to fundamental things. Study the various constitution draft of various nations, see what can be adopted. Because usually half of the constitution, 2/3 of it, is ways and means and procedures. And some procedures are more effective than other procedures. The fundamental aspects, the haram and halal, is clear. What are the basic rights? What are the basic fundamental issue, that everything based on election and consultation with the people, increase the amount of popular votes as much as possible. Now, especially in this time, popular vote is more feasible. We have now the blockchain, and we have the possibility of voting on your computer at home, so we can have much more popular vote. Yeah, plenty of vote will be done in the elected assembly and so on, but extend more of popular vote so the people will participate.
Yeah, that could be done quite easily. All you need is the blockchain, identity, verification.
All of it is now
debating on. You can have it. You can do the same thing for American Idol. Two rubbish singers, and they can get them kind of a poll. You could do, if there's where there's a will, there's a way. I'm going to carry on playing. We may need to do this in two sections because I do think there's a lot that's covered. I mean, some of them we can brush over, but because there are some hot topics in there, and inshallah, we'll just get to
must they apply instantaneously, or is there actual leeway for rethinking through, for example, apostasy and the punishment for apostasy? Some thoughts about these types of things. I have my views on this, yours.
We finish with Apostasy and so on.
I know, but the first thing that we have to agree on, and I think Muslims all agree on, is the perfection of the Sharia and the ultimate wisdom of our Lord and mercy of our Lord. And whatever it is that He has legislated for us is infinitely wise. As Imam Ibn Qayyim said, الشريعة مبناها على مصالح العباد في المعاش والمعاد والعاجل والآجل وهي رحمة كلها وعدل كلها وحكمة كلها. So the Sharia is based on the benefit and the well-being, welfare of people in this life and the one to come, and sort of immediate and long-term.
Yeah, we've discussed this before.
He says it's all about mercy, it's all about justice, it is all about wisdom. Anything that departs from this is not part of the Sharia, even if it was interpolated into it. So we have to accept the Sharia in its entirety. The Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said it which basically embrace Islam in its entirety. All of you embrace Islam, or it could mean also embrace Islam in its entirety. So we are embracing Islam in its entirety. Everything that comes from our Lord is good for us. But again, at the same time, I don't think that even the most strict, I shouldn't say that, but I think that even the more strict, there are people outside of the scholarly community, and we're not talking about the extremists outside of the scholarly community, but within the scholarly community, even the stricter scholars would recognize the need for gradualism. Even the stricter scholars would recognize that Omar suspended the had for Sariqa during Yawm al-Majaa, or during the famine. And they would recognize how Omar changed certain things because of the changes in social political realities. The daya that used to be al-aqila, that used to be, or the blood money that used to be the responsibility of al-aqila, which is the paternal kin. Omar changed it because of the changes in the social political realities of their times. People moved around, and by the time you collected the daya from al-aqila, it would have taken months or years, and it would have been unfair to the family of the victim. But Omar changed it to al-Diwan, people that are registered in the same, or the people in the same registry, same town, same naqaba or syndicate, same this, same that. And that is basically a precursor of like insurance companies,
Interesting.
So even the strictest scholars, or the stricter scholars would recognize adaptability and with ridicule. Of course, the Hanafis and Malikis accepted Omar's position on the issue of al-Aqila, not the Shafi'is and Hanbalis. So there is still disagreement, and there is still like a dialogue between the scholars and this dialectic between the law and the reality. But gradualism is basically just it's untenable to think that you could impose all of these things all of a sudden on people without sort of gradual steps towards the
So
realization.
gradualism would not be considered kufr.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
So to be very specific,
But also,
So it's interesting. So there,
So,
Dave, for example,
the Usuli fault is the fundamental issue of the Usuli fault. He's invoking Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim, and the Sharia, Masalih, and so on. Is already done. Is already done for you. You don't need to invoke that. The issue of apostasy, which seems to be that review the apostasy law themselves clearly what they are. That's number one. Nobody is willing to review that, unfortunately. For example, let me give an example. The misconception have been so deep that Qaradawi said, were it not for apostasy, Hadd al-Ridda, the apostasy law, Islam would have disappeared. No. Maybe Hadd al-Ridda is that almost annihilated Islam because it was abused by the rulers all of history, killing the opposition, claiming they are apostate. We know that for Abbasi, Al-Mahdi, how many so-called Zanadiq he killed. Most of them are opposition. And we know a case who almost killed Yasir Qadhi for narrating a hadith. So we know what we call him Zindiq. We know. It's exposed even in one important hadith, which we have in our research about the hadith, exterminate them, about the Imam from Quraysh, and so on. So this needs another approach. Secondly, he mentioned certain things which are of secondary importance, claiming that Omar changed them, that the diya is on al-aqila, and things like that. Yeah, al-aqila, because the aqila at the time in a tribal society, and this is clearly all of the Sharia evidence if you look at that, in a tribal society, the tribe, you have a certain specific belonging to the tribe, and they support each other. There was no insurance company. Now you can make it obligatory for cars to have an insurance, which covers obviously if you kill someone by accident and you are liable of diya, then the insurance will pay. It's still in place of aqila, and he mentioned the insurance company, to be fair to him. But this is the reason, is that at the time nobody could, except few people. If you can afford the diya, obviously it will be on you. If you cannot, then for the aqila, because it is a system of social coverage. There were no insurance at that time. That was the only natural insurance based on genealogy and so on. It's not that it is if it's not on the aqila, if he can't pay, is haram. No, but that was the insurance company at that time. Now we can improve on that and things like that. But this is not a fundamental. It's a secondary point. It's a rarity. What mean with tadarruj? That's the issue. Is not clear. As I mentioned, the example of usury, the example of brothels. What else there? Example of khamr I mentioned. There's really, I don't see anything in that case. For example, when Khomeini came to power, there were factories producing khamr, and obviously the people in revolutionary spirit went and smashed the bottles of khamr. That was a mistake. If this is owned by a Muslim, then he should not own it, and the factory should not be smashed, and the bottle of khamr should not be. They should be emptied. The bottle should be used for something else. That's number one. Wash them with something. You are destroying a good wealth, a good money. Secondly, the factory can be turned into producing alcohol for medical purposes and for as a substitute for gasoline. That's not khamr. Khamr is something that is produced for drinking. That's what's called khamr. Or turn into something producing vinegar and things like that. That's the way. But you have to use your brain and go back to the Sharia definition properly. Not follow Malik and Ahmad bin Hanbal, even Abu Hanifa and Shafi. Although I would say Abu Hanifa and Shafi are much better than these two others, Malik and Ahmad bin Hanbal. For a reason I don't want to mention now, because their sincerity and their devotion is much better than these two others. And their understanding of Islam and their willingness to confront rulers and suffer for that. These two others are not, unfortunately. But that's independent of that. You should be willing to even say, did Omar do the right things? What's his justification? Why did he do that? Just make it as if he's the authority, if he's a prophet. He's not a prophet. He's not allowed to do that. He makes a mistake and must be corrected. And some mistakes he was corrected by especially by Ali ibn Abi Talib in various things.
Okay, I'm going to carry on playing, inshallah, but there's going to be overlap here, so we can just brush over it. But I think it is important to get through as much of this as possible, because
if you have, the minute where something new starts, for example, oppressive ruling or something like that, then you can jump to it directly, because it will be the same repeat. Going, Ibn Qayyim said, Ibn Taymiyyah said, maslaha, gentleness, kindness. We discussed that. It's already gentle and kind, already done, provided you get it as it has been revealed, not as has been maybe sometimes in rarer occasion misapplied by Abu Bakr, or due to weakness and inability misappropriated by Uthman, or then completely deformed and in a satanic way by Muawiyah onward from that time until now, essentially, with few rare exceptions like Omar ibn Abdul Aziz.
He's going to be discussing hudud, devouring wealth, and deterrence. So there's some areas that may be of interest.
Well, the hudud, in all honesty, the hype about the hudud, there are, people disagree. How many hudud are there?
3, 4, 5.
Yeah. So let's say 4 hudud. There are fixed penalties. Why is accommoding the yatim or devouring the wealth of the orphan
less important?
Not a haddable?
Haddable is a new one.
Yeah, I use those things.
Okay.
But why there's no hadd for accommoding the yatim? That's mukipat, for riba. So if you examine the hudud punishments, there is always this huge force that is pushing you or pulling you, and Allah wants to deter you. This is not meant for revenge; it's meant for deterrence. And evidentiary standards that were applied by the scholars throughout the ages indicate that this is about deterrence. It is not about revenge. It is about deterrence and purification, but mainly deterrence. So you have like the zina. Great harm can ensue from this, family breakdown, societal breakdown, and then the pull. Is enormous. That lust has enormous power. So there has to be a high wall to deter people from this crime that will cause this much harm, to protect people's honor. The same applies to qadf, to protect people's honor. And then the putsch is also great because it's usually done in a state of extreme anger. You have, that is qisas, not hudud specifically, but qisas, which is also severe punishment, equal retribution to protect people's life. You have the theft, for instance, to protect people's property, and then the drive for it is huge as well. So let us understand that we're talking about 4 or 5 punishments out of thousands that are left for discretionary punishment, ta'zir, and out of thousands more where no punishment at all is prescribed, or no penalties are prescribed whatsoever or encouraged whatsoever. So we have to basically think of the hudud in light of this and understand that gradualism is an essential, basically, part of the application of Sharia. Gradualism is an essential part.
Must there be? So let's first give an example. Again, hypothetical. So,
and you talk about apostasy, right?
We'll get back. Before we start that one. Hypothetical example: a majority Muslim land has had an Islamist party. They win the party. They win it. They're now in parliament, or at least they can maneuver. But the country has allowed zina, has allowed khamr, has allowed so much fawahish. The Islamist party tactically wants to get to a position where more and more Islamic laws can be applied, but they can't do it overnight. So they say that, okay, let us start, let's just say, taxing khamr, let's just say. So that we want to de-incentive, de-incentive, we make it more difficult for them to acquire. They cannot shut it down immediately.
We said they can't immediately. They can't. Who said they can't? What prevents them from being no more production of khamr owned by Muslims? If it's owned by non-Muslims, that's their right, and that has nothing to do with that. That's number one. Secondly, what mean taxing khamr? Meaning it's allowed to drink it. This is just you get a treasury, you make the treasury fat, preying on people's sin and people's weakness and damaging material. No, it will not be available in Muslim-owned shops and so on. It will be in Christian shops and in monastery. You go to a monastery and be a friend of like they used to be in Sham and in Iraq and so on, in Umayyad time, Abbasi time. If you want to drink khamr, you can go to a monastery and drink there. But if you found on the street drunk and 2 witnesses are there and you apprehended, you will be flogged. That's it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. What's the problem? But you are not allowed to follow him and put people at the door of the monastery, checking people, are you Muslim or not? They're not allowed. That's it. Simple. I don't see what mean taxing khamr so that people abstain from khamr. It's not here. They have to abstain by their religiosity. That's it. That's
this whole mentality that somehow you have to two things that you have to speak for Allah. Allah's rule is not sufficient. We have to do it for him. And secondly, having a coercive approach. This
I
is
say,
I
what,
mean, this is
how to, what about zina? How do you do it gradually? Allow it for
often.
well, I don't know. Zina only for like, for example, for young people because they need it badly, and the other no. Just prohibited. The law, and there will be punishment if someone. But by the way, the punishment of zina needs 4 witnesses and so on is extremely difficult. Almost nowhere the punishment is ever administered, except in very rare cases based on the 4 witnesses. Usually, the people themselves coming and asking to be purified and admission, and usually the one in charge send them away, say you did not do anything, don't come again, and so on, until they admit several times, like Ma'iz. The following story, Omar, the one who is known to be very rough in these issues, in the time of Bakr, a man came and he seems to be in a state of shock. And Omar intercepted and said, this man said, what do you want to Abu Bakr? Say, I want to consult him, something major. I'm saying, say, my daughter committed zina. And the man, Omar pushed him back. So, did you lose your mind? Just cover her up. Don't tell anybody, and marry her to someone when marital time come. Rebuke her. Don't do anything. Don't tell anybody at all. And get her married, and no need to have a scandal. And the man that went, but he's not a rational person. He's confused. Came again, and Umar pushed him away. And third time he succeeded getting to Abu Bakr. Now Abu Bakr is the ruler. He's not just a consultant. And Abu Bakr was forced to administer the 100 lashes because she was virgin. And they were at that time, neither Abu Bakr nor Umar were aware that stoning is abrogated. But anyway, independent of that. So it's usually happened that people are coming. Nobody is spying on the people. And to get 4 witnesses, someone is doing fornication almost in the front of the house or in the garden. Someone is sufficiently idiotic. If he closes his door and nobody is watching, nobody will be able to witness. And nobody is allowed to enter the house. The moment you violate the house by entering by force or by spying, your witness and your application as an attorney general or something like that must be rejected, because you gained the so-called evidence by spying, and they violated the principle that evidence must be gained by casual observation, by accidental, not by deliberate trying to get the people in trap or watching them and things like that. Yeah, but but the problem that people understanding is having a fundamentally faulty point. Having a fundamentally faulty point. I don't know how to discuss with these people. Go back to the fiqh and so on, clean it. Don't go to Ibn Taymiyyah and Ahmad ibn Hanbal and go further, and it's possible. And now we have the collection, and some people have started some of that work. Actually, in time past, Ibn Hazm started some good work in that direction. Some such good, solid work in that direction. He made some blunders, some mistake, because some issue of usul about how to adopt a hadith and taking single narration a hadith and so on, and regarding them an absolute authority as if it's Quran and things like that. That's a mistake, definitely. That has to be clean. But he has got many problems completely different than the general fiqh. But is inside the halla, is ignored, is dead there, is a dead body.
There's some other good points. I mean, I have some timestamps. I haven't got into every single minute, but there's some areas which definitely have some meat on the bone there. So I'm just going to carry on with this, because some of them, he's going to go back to law of apostasy. He's going to also go into discretionary punishment. He's going to go into modern application. He's going to talk about fine tuning as well and reforming. So there's some interesting stuff in there. Apologies, there may be some overlap. We can always ignore that, and then only comment when necessary, when there's something new.
Critics are going to say this is kufr. They have not applied the Sharia, and even if they're trying to de-incentivize, the fact of the matter is it's still allowed, and their laws are not banning and prohibiting. The counter argument from their side is that, yeah, but we have a group of drunkards, we have a whole society that's immersed in the sin. They're not going to go from 0 to 100 immediately. So, as one simple example, again, hijab, for example, right? As you are aware, those countries that have tried to enforce it, generally speaking, has been a harsh backlash. And
let me stop here.
First there's
no requirement to enforce.
Matter of khamr, there's no requirement. It's just a punishment if someone is apprehended. That's it. You don't get the people to forsake khamr by that. This is a punishment just for deterrence. The people will take the khamr at home or produce khamr at home and drink it, and they will have been done that in the past, and they will be continuing doing in the future. What prevents them is the Islamic education and general Islamic environment. Concerning hijab, it cannot be enforced by the state. All what enforced by the state is covering the most severe awra because of the ayah in Surah Al-A'raf. We discussed when we made this Surah Al-A'raf that because this is to Bani Adam, ya Bani Adam. Since some of the Al-Siyah Bani Adam are not believer, so how to address them? Meaning the other people of Bani Adam have to enforce that. And this is for men is also genitals. For women are slightly wider, maybe below like below the navel and half of the thigh. That's it. That's what must be enforced publicly. Because it was enforced against those who do it for ritual reasons, for Hajj, although it's their religion required, but their right to practice their religion according to their belief was in that point cut, because publicly no more than that awra is allowed. Anything else is not a state to enforce. So people will adhere to hijab according to their best understanding and their piety and so on. And the society will enforce in the sense that if a woman is, which is a Muslim, is not wearing hijab, the people will turn away from her. She will discuss. That's it. Nothing can be done.
You gave the example of the woman who came to the Prophet ﷺ and he turned away, and he was the head of state. So, I mean, that would be a good example of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for example, he's the Prophet, he's the head of state. Ladies come. He would have to, if there was an enforcement, he would be deficient in not enforcing it.
And he turned away, and Aisha told, that was Asma. Aisha told her, listen, I'm saying I have seen something he dislike. And she asked him, said, don't you have seen how she looks like? And when a woman is above the age of menstruation, which believes in a day of Allah, day of judgment, nothing more can appear from her except the face and the hand. And the nation say up to half of the arm and things like that. But we don't go into the fine detail. That's for a Muslim woman. For a Kafir woman, is only that what I said, addressed in Bani Adam. That's all what is there delivered. And he has never enforced against anybody, except, as I said, in the public, those performing Hajj, and part of their Hajj and belief is to go naked because they don't do tawaf, and it shows even at night, but that's not enough. They have to cover the essential awra. And there's a piece of research, but there's technicality. There's no enforcement. State does not enforce. Has nothing to do with that. The Saudi state and so on pretend, and the Wahhabi idiots, they think that it's part of their duty to enforce. No, that's not. The same with going around with GMCs and Sababan screaming Salah, Salah, Salah. It's a bid'ah, actually. Or Salah. That's it. If someone doesn't come to Salah, then maybe he's a munafiq kafir. Let him. As-salama. Who said that the state has to enforce Salah? And the same regime, Saudi regime, is that what he is supposed to enforce? Prohibit usury, is allowing usury, and punish usury. Usury has to be punished. Why? What is their punishment? Ibn Abbas spelled it out. His punishment is like someone waging war against Allah and His Messenger. That's the ayah says. فَأَذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ. We declare to you war. You are warrior. Ibn Abbas said, if someone take usury, the first time, he may be educated, because usury sometimes is difficult to ascertain what it is and so on, and details. And the second time, the Imam must struck their neck, must administer death penalty, must. The first time, maybe you try to find an excuse. They may not understand exactly that's the usury contract, because some aspects of usury is a little bit complex and deep. Yes, understand. They don't understand the law exactly and things like that. Give them a leeway. Make them sign an undertaking that they understood that they will not repeat it. And next time, strike their neck. That's not done by the Saudis. Was it done going with Sababan and GMCs, which was given to them by Salman al-Aziz, who is the ruler of Riyadh, screaming to people, Salah, 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 Salah. And there's no case from Messenger of Allah and anybody at all even doing anything like that. The only narration in that which is that Ali ibn Abi Talib, while he's going from his own house in Kufa to the masjid, is passing in some houses of Al-Hasan and some of his people who working with him in the state, his own employee, while passing casually from his house. So he doesn't go around in Kufa. Just on the way, he says, knock on Hasan, ya Hasan al-Salah, ya Fulan al-Salah. Specific people, just reminding them. That's it. Not going to another street or telling them. Just saying ya Salah and then continue. And doesn't check after that or is Hassan present like what they did in Najd. These people have These people are mentally deranged, the Wahhabi and so on. And these people believe that somehow has any Islamic standing, because if the two mashayikh, despite all the respect we have to bring to them, that they address these hot issues and so on, if that all what they go back to Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim and at best Ahmad bin Hanbal, they will never find a way. They will never. No new modern Islamic state will be ever established on Ahmad bin Hanbal, Malik, even Abu Hanifa and so on. Abu Hanifa maybe a bit Taliban demonstrate that, but they will have problems. Sooner or later, they will face surmounting problems. They have to do more ijtihad and so on. And Mawardi and so on. This will not bring an Islam. They'll bring an entity, maybe a good one, because Taliban are sincere. So, and they're merciful. It will be a merciful state. It will not be oppressive. No doubt about that. Because they are sincere and good Muslims. That's what. Because of that. Because the barrier in their hearts as good Muslims, a practical Muslim, will make them merciful and good ruler in some sense. But it's not that what the system or the constitutional system, which even a ruler who is not that good still is bound by the constitution, is relying on the piety of the ruler. But relying on the piety of the ruler alone is not correct. He has to be restrained by laws and regulation and by the sword if necessary.
Yeah, I think basically, ultimately, the same message. Don't do half a job, go back to the text.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I mean, they've done, and for example, Sheikh Yasir has come a long way. He's obviously abandoned aspects of the Wahhabi inclination. Sheikh Hatem is Ibn Taymiyyah, but he's obviously come a long way in terms of questioning, forging his own way. Ultimately, you've gone halfway. Go further. Go further.
And it's a basic say, we said if an Islamic movement comes to power and so on, they should not take power, and they should have told the people that we will be applying Islam, and it entails these and these things, and clarify it. For that, they have to do their homework and study. Until now, Muslim Brotherhood have accepted Sheikh Hassan Barr, rahmatullah, have what is called 20 principles, just amorphous slogans, essentially.
Don't take power until you've done the work.
Hazrat Tahir has more. He has a constitutional draft, which is completely just a little bit improvement on Mawardi, but it's completely not that what Sahifat al-Madina, not that what Najran Treaty entails, because the Sheikh was never aware about them. They were never studying Islamic history. They were buried. You have to get them out of the burial.
I mean, some things are border on ridiculous as well. I remember I think in one of the books they mentioned about a conclusion about Islamic culture being applied was something, architecture and how the houses were designed, as if that is any determining factor of the application of Islamic law, because the houses are a certain way. I may be misquoting here, but the point is ultimately it's the same thing. Go back to the texts.
Yeah,
human beings.
And people say there's Islamic activity because they care about the awra and so on, and they want to give the woman liberty to be easy at home and get a son. They made the yard inside the house, and so the yard inside, so that the outsider would not look in the yard. So the lady of the house can go almost half naked in the house, enjoy the sun, benefit from the health benefit, and all of these things. The modern way of building is built in a society which have no awra. Like, for example, American style of single family houses is usually the entrance and the sitting room and the kitchen are merged in a downstairs hall. And they call it American style. And the stairs goes up to the bedrooms and so on. And the lady of the house cooking, there's no problem. She's maybe wearing bikini at home because she wear bikini also outside. So
windows as well being completely visible glass.
Yeah, visible. Instead of having like this obscured glass and things like that to cover aura and so on. That's because the way the building is so is derived from the taste of the society about aura and about covering aura and so on. That's it. It develops naturally. Obviously,
it's not a determinant factor. For example, you could have a very austere society. It doesn't mean that it's more Islamic. It's just I just remember that example, and I was thinking about it in retrospect. Ultimately, it's the same thing. Rather than people just saying, providing some kind of elaborate phrasing about a subject, go back to the texts.
Yeah,
it's continuously come across the same problem whereby people are just going back to certain books that are written, or when you bring it up to them, they become like the clergy, the Catholic Church, completely unable to go any further, or at least even to accept that they should be doing that. Yeah,
And
that's not.
that's exactly what has happened. What Omar feared that when he was asked to record the hadith, he was thinking about a month, and then he ultimately said, "I saw that people wrote some books of their own, and the result that they got stuck to these books and forgot the book of Allah. It's best to have only the written document, the book of Allah, and the other things is narrated orally, and then whatever Allah protect will be protected. He does not do it in a such sophisticated way. He does not have the philosophy of protection for the dhikr. Maybe he regarded the Sunnah as not protected. We don't know. But that these issues were not discussed at that time. They are all of the witness of the Prophet did, and most of the things they knew about it. And Umar was actually one of the least information about the Sunnah, and he admitted that on various occasions that many of the Sunnah he has missed, and he mentioned the reason for that. So, but that what happened after that happened is not only that the collection of Sunnah became even some collection regarding the 6 books. What are the 6 books? The 2 Sahih and so on. Actually, some other books outside having more authentic hadith than the 6 books. So becomes they call the canon. The Europeans call it a canon. It was never declared canon, but somehow it seems to be later on, like Ibn Salah say, Al-Kutub al-Sitta, people accept it generally that it essentially generally authentic, but nothing. No, it's not true. Al-Bukhari has a hadith which can be criticized, but nobody is bothering about that. 70 criticized by the Darqutni, and several other we have criticized based on matan. And there definitely some fabricated hadith would not intentionally fabricated, but with the analysis of matan and isnad show they are batil. And some hadith in Bukhari batil because the ultimate one narrator like Muawiyah, the hadith about Imam of Quraysh and so on, Muawiyah lied that he fabricated that. But who dares to say Muawiyah is a fabricator? We need to do some other work than that. We need to go more than that. Before thinking about having an Islamic state, it's just a repetition of a Uthmani or Abbasi or Bani Umayyah. If it is going back to Khilafah Rashid as it should be, then Khilafah Rashid was in Quran and Sunnah. Nothing else was at that time. In that time, in a natural way at the beginning, in a simple way, was suitable for the spirit of the time. With the advancement of the time and the development of philosophy, development of ilm al-kalam, development of usul al-fiqh, development of ulum al-hadith, and the complication of human diet, complex psychological complex of complete societies accumulated over the centuries, technological development, you have to dig deeper and go more philosophical. And go, and that's Quran contains that. Example, evidence, check our 4 chapters. First 4 chapter in volume number 1, which is published in English, and also the Arabic one, which is Dunya and Deen. الذكر هو القرآن والسنة. Quran, Sunnah, الذكر محفوظ. Third is قواعد أصولية. Yeah, these 3 chapters. Fourth is about evidence of Islam and evidence of proof of God, etc. That's the 4th volume. But these three, that's published in the volume number 1 already in English and also in Arabic. And you see that we come to usuli points with certitude. Under Tawheed, there must be some axiomatic assumption. Axiomatic assumption is that the Quran from Allah, Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and the necessity of reason. That's only what we are using there. Only. And we have established also there some of them with absolute certitude. With absolute certitude. No, with overwhelming evidence for necessity of reason and overwhelming evidence from Quran and Sunnah mutawatira. Only one point I pointed that we cannot conclude with certitude, with absolute certitude that it is, but with overwhelming evidence for it, is that can the Prophet forget, or Allah makes him to forget? That's it. And I believe Allah makes him to forget. That's it. And the evidence are discussed. I said, but this is not so established that if someone denies that, he becomes a kafir. All other usuli points, I believe if someone has seen the evidences and denies them or not commit, he's a kafir. Because essentially saying the Quran is not from Allah. Like the Quran cannot be from Allah at the same time that the previous Sharia are still continuous and valid until now. It can't be. Which Al-Hanafi assumed. But they didn't look at the matter in its depth philosophical and Quranic aspect. It's impossible to be. He cannot be messenger of Allah because he claims that he is, and the Quran claims that he is messenger to all mankind. For example, if he is messenger to all mankind, meaning all the previous Sharia has abrogated, because let's say a Japanese, he is messenger to the Japanese also. A Japanese, tell him this is in the Sharia of Musa. Say, Musa is not sent to me, sent to Bani Israel. How can his Sharia be valid for me? It's gone. So the moment he's appointed Messiah to all mankind, all previous Sharia are gone. I will give you a new Sharia from zero. That is gone because it cannot be valid. How can it be valid for the Japanese who was not even addressed with it in the beginning with? For example, that's one example. And mention many other examples also and many other evidences. It's not only the one argument that there are many other arguments. If you see that, you come to absolute conviction, but if Sharia is abrogated. Assuming it's really the previous Sharia, most the Jews have is fabricated and their own invention, but assume it is really of coming from revelation. Even its coming from revelation is gone and forgotten. And this is a complete, there's several pages there with various evidence, 6, 7 evidences, all of them certitude. We have to go that. Now, the Ummah is now old already, mature enough. And when an Ummah become mature, because there is complexes and sophistication and counter arguments accumulate, like the Jews. When Isa came, they were already a complicated nation with complicated books full of fabrication and so on and so on. And he has an uphill battle with them. And
this is why it's so destructive to refer to human beings whose understanding is going to be contingent on their time. And then you have to make up stuff like Sharia changing with the times. Allah's knowledge is infinite.
Yeah.
His hadith, his prophet is protected. So you go back to this Kitab and Sunnah, you're not going to have these problems. Yeah. It's like me as a person working in technology. If I don't know how to do my job, I should just quit. Simple. Just say, okay, can someone else do it? Because it's becoming just like the Jews and Christians before, whereby they're not prepared to concede their own ineptitude. They become entrenched in their madhabs. They've been entrenched in their maslak. I remember one time I went to Juma, I went to Maghrib, and this brother made a point about where you join your mushaf. If you're starting late, you start this side. It's a maslak. Apparently, there's something called a maslak. I don't know what that is when it's at home. But basically,
that's sub-madhab. There's various maslaks in madhab.
They're basically going in. I call it air kung fu. Whereby I make up kung fu. This is kung fu. I made it up. And then I account you based on that. Whereas you have Kitab and Sunnah. Go back to it. If a person's not skilled, just say I'm not skilled.
This end ultimately is that the founder of Maslak and Abu Hanifa, but not by their own willingness, but the people coming after them, they appointed them Lord beside Allah. Most of the Ahbar and Ruhban did not appoint themselves. It's done against their will after they have passed away. And some of them did. They are criminals. There's this and this. But you look at the people following after them, our Imam said that must be, he knows the revelation better than us and so on. So he's becoming Lord beside Allah, ultimately ending with things contradicting the text, and still they insist.
And going to the extreme example of what's the better, the qabr or the that's it. Ultimately, go back, do your job. Simple as that. If I go to a doctor and he prescribes a leech, I'd say, doctor, you're referring to something which is like a medical development 300 years ago. Can you go back and do the research? In the same way, this is what we need to insist upon. As the Yawm, we need to insist upon. I'll continue playing, inshallah. I think maybe we'll get halfway through because there'll be
I think if it's a repetition, or maybe
the second part goes into marriage, gender, and all this kind of stuff, which I think is going to be important, maybe to do as a separate section. Because basically, my point of view is this: if there's a current topic out there, the Ummah needs to know. And it's very handy that these brothers are discussing it. They discussed the Khilafah last time, and that gave us a gold mine to discuss. Today, they're discussing the issue of gradualism, and it's a gold mine for us to discuss because basically you want to be elevating the Ummah based off of what you say. So I think
for this today, I think is enough. That marriage.
If it's okay with you, at least we can just run through because I want to get to the point where he talks about some examples and fine tuning, because that will take us up to Maghrib and it'll be like a halfway point, and it'll be quite because the next part we can I mean we could always just skip through each other. I think it's quite handy.
And let's see what I mean. I don't understand what's fine tuning. Are they talking about evidence for the existence of Allah fine tuning, or what's
they're saying fine tuning the Sharia in terms of area permissibility, and this. I want to see how they articulate.
Is already fine tuned. The Quran says clearly, "Al-yawma akmaltu lakum," I made your religion perfect for you. It's already fine tuned. And the ni'mah is complete. Is perfect. Is there. and I am pleased with Islam for a deen for you. You should be pleased with Allah give you. If you think you need fine-tuning, meaning you need to fine-tune your brain cells. There's problem with the brain cells, not to the Quran, or it's not from Allah. That ayah is not from Allah, it's fabricated somehow. The Quran is all fabricated and not protected. There's no other solution of this. The mere even thinking that you can fine-tune. You mean fine-tune the fiqh, meaning that fiqh is defunct, is having problems. That's what you may fine-tune. But even the best thing is to go where the problem started and clean from the bottom up. From the top, you will never clean. If you have a contaminated water, you have to go with mud and so on it. You have to put it through a filter.
Well, there's another one. So he's talking about reforming Islam. So there's no need covering this bit of the issue of apostasy and blasphemy because that's already been covered. So I'll skip ahead to this bit. It talks about, is this reforming Islam? Let's go to this
pragmatist.
What if somebody were to say, Sheikh, that this is reforming Islam?
Well, it's not. Omar ibn Khattab.
Let me go backwards a bit.
In the long run.
Yeah, of course, it would bring about great benefit for the community and for the faith.
Sorry.
Because, as you know, I get especially a lot of pushback in this regard to rethink through the modern applications of these laws. Not only is it not a rejection of the Sharia, it actually might be the wiser course of action for a person who wants to apply the Sharia in the long term.
Yeah, of course, it would bring about great benefit for the community.
Again, the same, repeating the same problem. What means reform? Yes, Christianity, and they needed to reform because it's a deficient from the beginning. And actually, the Christianity, for example, the reform movement of Luther, for example, against the Pope, is actually itself a defunct. It's not what Isa brought. Now, all the research has shown clearly that Christianity is a Pauline Christianity, most likely for someone who is a bipolar psychopath, who has visions and dreams and so on. It's not he's lying deliberately, but he's in another world altogether. A completely different Messiah presented than the early Christian around the brother of Christ, Jacob, and also the apostles in Jerusalem. Clearly, and the hostility and the contact is now being dug out by scholars. So it's something defunct. So he tried to improve on it. That's what happened. And the improvement is not an improvement because it starts with defunct. And it's like starting with a car which does not move, and let's give it a new paint. That's it. So this doesn't make any sense.
Let me get back because I think there's going to be some interesting points in this bit. Then we can call it quits there, and then the next session we can go into because he talks about marriage, gender later on. And we can go because this is going to be some relevant stuff because I've actually been asked separately on the issue of free mixing because that's another hot potato here as well. People discussing free mixing and all this kind of stuff.
Again, the same thing.
And also, because other thing is this, Sheikh. Right now, you have a massive issue with modernism. You have this idea of the red pill movement. You've got masculinity, all this kind of stuff. Basically, people don't know that, look between their legs and realize that they're a man or a woman. That
image in the West because they started with a mutilated religion, which is not a revelation, or if it has some element of relation, the rest are fabrication and lies of scholars, etc. Through history. Then they have problems. Here it is not. Here it becomes only a problem if you start with that what the fuqaha developed, which is defunct and have mutilated. So you have to go.
Why I say this warrants a separate video as well is because
definitely.
You have, for example, the issue of careers, modern societies, inability to survive, questions of limits on dowry, all this kind of stuff. Because there's going to be some good stuff. Because even if we don't get into
what's limit in dowry, what has this to do with modern or non-modern? It was discussed at the time of Omar and settled.
There's more to it than that. Trust me on this, there is more to it in terms of, for example, I already know your answer is going to be in terms of you can put in your contract X, Y, Z. They do discuss that in their defense, but it will be good to go through it because ultimately there is, when you have the Sheikh Yasir and you've got Sheikh Hatem discussing, it has a bit of gravitas. So using this as a template it's handy for us, inshallah. I think let me just finish this last bit because we're coming up to Maghrib anyway, so it's a convenient juncture, inshallah.
Even for the Ummah, if we have a realistic, gradual, pragmatist, and I do repeat, I use this word and I understand that it has a bad reputation within our community, but I am basically trying to underscore the positive connotations of this word, pragmatist.
What if somebody were to say, Sheikh, that this is reforming Islam?
No, it's not. Well, Omar ibn Khattab did not change Islam when he changed the al-Aqila. When he suspended when he did not basically divide the conquered lands between the conquerors or between the army. So this is not changing Islam. This is basically applying the Islamic principles to different realities and adapting to circumstantial variables.
Excellent. So again, this is the key point, dear viewers, is to understand there's no reformation going on. The only reforming we're calling for is your understanding of what we're saying. Islam doesn't need reformation. Rather, it is the fine-tuning that the Sharia allows, right? There's no, Protestant revolution going on. We're protesting the shallow understanding.
There's no fine-tuning the Sharia allows. This is again a mistake. Islam doesn't need fine-tuning. It's already fine-tuned. As I said, try to check your brain, see if you can correct your brain and improve on it. And for that, the first step is to make the Quran your Imam. Not Ahmad ibn Hanbal, not Abu Bakr, not Umar. And the Messenger of Allah is the human Imam, the Imam in flesh, which translates the Quran in his Sunnah. Essentially, the Sunnah is explanation and expansion of the Quran.
This issue where he says about Umar ibn Khattab and the division of lands. What's your understanding of that in terms of, in terms of the fifth? And is that a mandate, or is this something with the Khalif has the remit to effectively repeal or something?
There was discussion: should we distribute that on the fighter or keep it for the treasury? Because it's that issue is already it's gone and forgotten, because now we have no army where the people are arming themselves and sending the fighter getting from the ghanima. Because they are arming themselves, and the whole army is built by the people themselves. The state has no contribution to it whatsoever. Now this is all gone. We don't need to think about it. The army is a professional army, and they have no right in any booty. The booty comes in the treasury. Ma salama, all gone. That's it. That's for compensation for the expenditure. For example, the one who has a horse or a camel gets 3 shares, and the one which is infantry gets 1 share. Because the one who has to maintain the horse, he buy the horse, he breed the horse, everything. That's not from the state. So the whole structure is different. That's the one. Secondly, is the conquered area. The conquered area is conquered by Muslim and by the Muslim army. For Muslim, as Zubair said, give it to the fighter themselves. Divide it and give it to the fighter. Like he claimed the Prophet gave Khaybar to those who participated. Khaybar was an exception, because Allah promised after Hudaybiyah that he will give them maghanim kathira. They will take it for those only who attended Hudaybiyah. Those who stayed back will be punished by not allowed to come with them. So only those who are in Hudaybiyah went to Khaybar. That's specifically a gift for them. It's not for the general ummah. So Ijtihad of Umar is correct. That the booty is for the ummah in principle. It's for Allah and His Messenger in principle. Khaybar is distributed because that was specifically allocated for those and those who did not come to Hudaybiyah, because they claim we could not and so on. But anyway, they thought Muhammad will never come back, so they were punished by saying they and the Quran say, let us follow you. They say, no, you're not tatabi'una, Allah ordered that. You're not going to come, you're not to participate, you're not getting anything of the booty. Because of this specific circumstance, the specific ruling for Khaybar. Umar did not argue this way because he did not see that point. But does it matter? He felt it. He understood the meaning, general meaning. So that's an ijtihad. And that's for Khaybar, is a specific for Khaybar. By the nas of the Quran explicitly. So
let me just
the fine points which only the state, the Islamic State, will settle by shura, by discussion, and by argument. But you see, even the issue, because as Zubair objected, said, divided between the fighter alone. Umar said, no, this is for the ummah, and we have to finance the fighter for the future. And who will finance the military city who have to be there protecting the border for maybe decades and centuries? And that was the case. There were military cities going until the time of Mu'tasim, 2.5 centuries, until Mu'tasim said, what is the need for these military city in Egypt? They're just living from the treasury for no good reason. And he canceled that, and this way it was a blessing for Egypt, because this way they were forced to go in life, start agriculture, do business, and mix with the Egyptian. And this until the time the majority of Egyptians were Christian, and the majority were not Arab speaking. Egypt changed its deen, and because of the action of Mu'tasim, Mu'tasim never envisaged that will have that positive effect. But the argument of Zubair is based on Khaybar. Omar argument was about that it is the booty is for the Muslim generally, and so on. He did not notice that Khaybar is very specifically, and people were prevented to go with them who stayed back in Hudaybiyah with the nas of the Quran. But he did not put that together, and if he would notice that, he would say to Zubair, no, Khaybar is a speciality. It's not the way it works. It works is for the Muslim army fights in behalf of the Ummah, and all the booties will go to the Ummah now, especially the land.
How can you apply something that's khas to the Yawm?
Yeah, exactly. That's a specific, and there's a clear specification for those who attended Hudaybiyah. This is a historic matter which is gone.
Okay, excellent. Let me just finish this bit just to see if there's anything else said, because I haven't memorized all of it, but and then we can reconvene or another time.
As I said, all arms that were self-financing. The Messenger of Allah barely gave them anything from the treasury. Some asked for in Tabuk, they wanted to participate, but they can't finance themselves, and he said, I cannot give all of you finance, I don't have. So everyone else was financing himself, buying his own weapons, everything. That has gone long ago. 2 centuries later, no Muslim army and no army in the world was self-financing, essentially. The world has changed in matter. Armies are all professional armies, even voluntary armies or draft. Only the persons are drafted, essentially. The rest, all equipment, all clothing, all shoes, all boots is from the treasury, not from their own pocket. It's just an obliged taken by force, which does not apply in Islam anyway. You cannot take anybody to the battlefield by force. So it's completely different. So that's maybe one of the examples say that needed ijtihad is not in the Sharia. It's already the Sharia, but Umar did not see it this way. He saw only the other side, did not see the Khaybar especially. If he had seen that, he would have defeated the Zubair immediately. Did not need to shura and discussion. Did not see it. We see it now. No problem. Because the Quran is until Yawm al-Qiyamah. Every generation will see more information and things which have the previous generation have missed. And Allah promised in the Quran, we will show them our ayah, evidences, both evidences in the horizon and themselves, until it becomes clear that's the truth for everyone later. More evidences come, more days and more days and more days, which were not available at that time. Nobody even envisaged that at that time. And that's part of the perfection. It is inside, but you have to take layer over layer and apply it and develop it. So that's yeah. So that's
some people have.
I'll just carry on just the last.
This is the wisdom that Allah Azza wa Jalla has allowed within the Sharia, the fine-tuning and the gradualism that overall brings about a better sense of Iman and the closeness to the Sharia. Now we talked about apostasy, we talked about blasphemy. Obviously, there's multiple issues. One thing we have to talk about, because it's really sensitive, but it needs to be done. Marriage and gender.
We'll save that for next time. So basically, just to summarize, in terms of general permissibility, the going back to the text.
And fundamentally believe that the deen is complete. What it was not deen at the time, with at the death of Rasul, is not a deen after that. So you don't need to invent. It may be deep and you have to dig it out, because there's some deep, complicated issues. And some of them will become clear by the development and of society and humanity in time. But the basic situation structure of the world at that time is that we have hunter-gatherer, we have people working in agriculture, we have people working in commerce, and we have people working in industry. So all the basic earning methods and living methods of humans are there in a simple way. Industry was very simple. We don't have the complicated industry now, but it was there. And all these issues related to that are included in Sharia. Industry developed further, became complicated. Companies and contracts became more complicated, but every part of it is regulated by Sharia. You have to put them correctly. Like when you design a company, you have to have a complete, complex document. But every bit of it is Sharia compliant if you do it properly. And you don't need to fine-tuning. But you need to fine-tune your current application, your specific company, the document of the company, constitution of the company, etc. You have to fine-tune that to comply with the Sharia, not the opposite. Sharia is really fine-tuned. So this is a misconception. I don't know what I mean with fine-tuning or gradualism. We discussed gradualism. We gave examples of gradualism. They didn't give us any gradualism. Concerning apostasy, and that's the problem is the so-called apostasy had the ridda, which does not exist. But you have to dig deep to go back and have the courage to confront history and to expose all application of had ridda in history. Most application after Khulafa Rashidin is a political application and political terror. And it's very clear. Modern, when we're discussing applying Sharia in Egypt in the time of Sadat, the first thing Sadat suggested for the Shura of Egypt, this is my Shura, it's not Shura, Majlis al-Ummah, the National Assembly, is to start discussing the apostasy law. He wants to have apostasy law so he can cut the opposition heads. That's what he wants. People wake up, look at the reality of the universe and the reality of the book, Quran Sunnah. And also Sunnah, some work has to be done about authenticity, reviewing again and advancing the issues of like in our discussion, which you are posting now bit by bit of Ibn Salah. And we showed there are major mistakes made also about maybe the general principles are correct, but their application in specific cases is a problem. Some of these fundamentally contradict the Quran, like can we take a narration from Mubtadi'a or not Mubtadi'a? This is all nonsense, utter nonsense. Violate the principle of Shahada and the Quran blatantly. We have to discuss that, to go that. It's a contamination of history. The split in sectarianism, the split of Ummah, the split started seriously by Muawiyah. Before that, there were ijtihadat and various facts and points of view, but after that became really firaq, became divisions. Some of them hostile and killing the others, and declaring the other to be kafir. Most initiated and instigated by Muawiyah. And his mischief and his cunningness and his stabbing the Ummah in the back, and even allying with the Romans to fight Ali ibn Abi Talib. But this will come in a book by itself. If you see that, then you know what these people have done, and the scholars after that, regarding some of them as example and the narration as acceptable, open a door of a catastrophic contamination of Islam, which is with us today. So we have to go back and clean that. That's it. No fine-tuning. Cleaning what they call Islam now is that what Fuqaha and so on is not Islam. It's a contaminated version of Islam.
It's rust, kind of like rust.
Yeah, it's rust.
Rust on iron.
Or the pure water of Islam is mixed with mud, becoming a swamp, not a running river which is self-purifying. It became a swamp. That's it. But that's gender and gender we keep for the next time, and there may be an opportunity. But repeat this principle. Go to Quran. Take the Quran as Imam, and after the Quran as Imam, by itself, because it's self-saying. All what you need is really understanding Arabic language and read it from A to Z, from first ayah to last ayah, and compare that and cross-reference it. That's number one. Not cutting it in pieces, not twisting things out of context. Second, the Messenger of Allah is the human Imam and the human dhikr. The dhikr becoming body, become human. This is the Imam. After that, there's nothing else except necessity of reason, mastering the language, and later on it became necessary to master mathematical sciences, logical sciences, philosophy, and ilm al-kalam, but based on a correct way by using the Imam, not taking from Aristotle and twisting the Imam to be similar to Aristotle, what the Islamic history ilm al-kalam did. Which is historically happened because human shortcoming and the way human works, but it should not happen like that, because nobody thought I can go to the Quran and can find the starting point for ilm al-kalam and starting point for evidence of proof of God and so on. They thought, no, this has to be done on rational ground, and then we prove then after that Quran is from Allah. No, assume the Quran is from Allah. Can we do something with it? And then feeding back and show the consistency, and it's a proof in itself. They never did that. They should have done that, but it didn't happen. Hey, now we have to do it now. That's it. No fine-tuning. Going back to and following the real Imam. That's it. And the real Imam says clearly the deen is complete. So if you think there's something you need to fine-tune or gab or something, that's your imagination. You have to look at yourself. And the first time a hadith or a narration looks a little bit odd, then Either it is really odd, then you have to check the isnad and check the matan, and most likely you will detect there's some problem there. But how will you find it odd? Because it doesn't seem to be fit in the scheme of the Quran and the Sunnah Mutawatira and the general Sirah of Allah. And there's maybe some oddity there. Let me something. Maybe I misunderstanding, or maybe there's a mistake of the narrator, and maybe someone received some review of the book, and in his mind it interfered with some hadith, like the hadith of Abu Hurairah, the famous one, were it not for Eve, Hawa, no woman will betray her husband. Hawa never betrayed anybody, and usually women are not betrayal for their husband. So this stinks. Where it comes from, the Jews, from the story of Adam there. Then we know the matter is suspicious. Did Abu Hurairah lied directly against the Messenger? No, but he was sitting with Ka'b al-Ahbar long part of his life and listening to his stories, and some of them interfered in mind and he thought he made a from Messenger of Allah. And we know how human memory works. Nowadays we have even reports and academic studies about the failure of human memory. And some people are narrating something that they heard it and they were attending a certain celebration, and it turns out they never attended. But he had someone reporting and they thought they were there. We have examined that in the YouTube now. So we apply that. And you know, this is some Israelite. But interfered Abu Hurairah's mind. And he thought he heard it from the Messenger of Allah. And honestly believed he heard it. But we know how it has happened. We have to dig that. Because it's an oddity. It looks odd. What was Hawa? When did Hawa betray Adam? Never. Adam is the one who betrayed her and pulled her to the disaster. But in the Old Testament, it's not like that. The woman betrayed him and cooperated with the snake. We know where is the source. For example, let me just give you examples. So if you say something odd, strange, the Quran took our ridda and threatened the hellfire, doesn't mention any punishment. And the hadith say, مَا بَدَّلَ دِينَهُ فَاقْتُلُوهُ. بَدَّلَ دِينَهُ. There's apostasy. When the word ridda is well known and used in the Quran, but there's no mention of ridda there. بَدَّلَ دِينَهُ. Ibn Hazm went on odd time, say, changing the deen of any deen is prohibited except changing to Islam. So even a Jew cannot become a Christian, otherwise he'll be killed. That's his misunderstanding. بَدَّلَ دِينَهُ. Interpret the deen here, no. Here, بدل دينه means changing his allegiance, his citizenship. That's it. And it's applied only for Muslims. We don't care what the others, they change their allegiance and so on. As long as they have Islamic allegiance and they change it, meaning joining the hostile kafir enemy. Then they become hostile and they become the warrior apostate. That's the only assuming the hadith is authentic. It's only two channels. One of them is having a question mark on it. So that's the way we study that, the Sunnah, and get the audits out of the way. You remove that, there's nothing related to it except the imagination and the fabrication of some scholars on the tyranny of certain rulers. Al-Mahdi al-Abbasi, who killed thousands of so-called Zindiq. And he is the biggest Zindiq, the biggest Munafiq himself. So that's the way to go. We don't need all of that. But the problem, these two mashayikh, with all respect, they still did not do the real step, which requires work, which is going back to the Imam.
Yeah, I mean, so you got Kitab al-Tawheed, it's in English, 2 versions. This one's for free as a PDF. This is the abridged, more legible version. And there's the Arabic version. It has Usuli points. With anyone, our details will be in the description. Bring your rebuttals, bring your discussions, open comms. If you ever, we don't shy away from discussion, critique, and we're not, from a street sweeper to a scholar, anyone can discuss.
And maybe a street sweeper will come with a point which is outclasses all scholars, including Plato himself. So that's it. That's this mentality of that a scholar will be somehow kind of divinely inspired. No. But actually, scholars should be distrusted more than the common people because of, first of all, the Quran telling us, يا أيها الذين آمنوا, oh, you believe, إن كثيرا من الأحبار والرهبان لا يأكلون أموال الناس بالباطل ويصدون عن سبيل. Many of the scholars, أحبار, and ruhban, monks. So the one who are excel in so-called scholarship, with people called firstly alim, they should be called qari, or reader, or scholar, or clerical. And the ruhban, the monks, the one ascetics, devoting for worship and is forsaking life. Many of these, they devour people rightfully and misguide from the way of Allah. And the Messenger said, the majority of the Munafiqeen of Ummah are from the Qurra, the reader. Quran reader and meaning generally. Reader meaning scholars, essentially. The majority in two narrations. So this is a warning. We don't say they talk about the poor street sweeper or the camel rider. He may be better than the scholars. So get out of this mentality and start doing your homework.
They have no vested interest. The Yawm don't have a vested interest. The scholars are the one you want to buy out. There's a hilarious example. This Dr. Shadi said. He said, if I ever become a Khalif, the first thing I'll do, I'll phone up Rabi al-Madkhali. Where can I get some Madkhalis? You're really handy for me. It's a it's a very astute comic point in terms of how it benefits regimes. And a lot of the things that you detect are because of basically the meddling of power. Power is the thing that spoils everything.
And who plotted against Isa and tried him and delivered him to Rome and for so-called crucifixion? Obviously, it was another person, but they believed it's Isa, and it is the Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court of the Jews, with the cream of the scholars there, and the chief priest, not the common people, for God's sake. So wake up to these realities of utmost importance. This is utmost importance. وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابة المخلصين المجاهدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته وتصبحون على خير.